materialistic society, do we need money?
Of course we need money. Money makes the world go round, don't it?
You can't do anything without money.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We need money, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody needs money.
Money. You need it everywhere.
If you had a lot of money, what would you do with it?
Spend it. Spend it on clothes, food.
Invest it heavily. Invest it heavily.
You can't get anywhere without money.
This is a material world where money speaks. It's also an unjust world. Some people who have money can get themselves every luxury available, whilst others have little chance in life. Over to Chris in Brazil.
When Europeans first sailed into Rio about 500 years ago, they could see how fabulous it was, and they discovered it was also very rich.
In fact, today, Brazil is still one of the 10 richest countries on Earth. Whatever you want, you can have, just as long as you've got enough wads of money. Now just imagine you were rich, stinking rich. What would you think about the fact that something like 13 million of the people in this country live in shantytown slums, and around 70% of the people in this country are said to be undernourished? How would you cope with the statistics of the place? Well, perhaps you might get on your personal phone to the people who run the country, the politicians. Get them to do something about it. See a bit of justice. Hello, can I speak to the president, please? And when he doesn't answer you, you begin to think about it a bit more. Perhaps the problems are all a bit too big for you. So perhaps the best thing to do is just sip your drink and hope that someone else finds a solution to the problems.
What would you do if you had a lot of money?
Spend it.
Invest it. Give it away. No. I'll put it in my bank.
If I had loads of money, I'd give some to charity. Honestly.
Hopefully, I'd like to say that I'll give it to animal charities or to some worthwhile cause, but I mean, you can say that, can't you? What you do and what you say, sometimes you give some to charity.
I give them towards people, you know what I mean, who ain't got money and that.
I give quite a lot of it to children in need and everything. I wouldn't keep it for myself because I'm not a selfish person.
But before we begin to feel all righteous about it, ask yourself, if this drink belonged to you, and you were really thirsty, and it was very hot, how easy would you find to give it up? And if you'd worked hard to become rich, how easy would you find it to give up your money?
A lot of these people edge a living out of collecting this rubbish, you know, old tins, glass, paper, cardboard, and so on. Some people would actually live in the rubbish. They'd spend the day actually in the dump, picking up this thing. They have no employee relationship with the local government. So what they collect is what they get at the end of the day. Perhaps a family working the whole day long perhaps would earn just barely enough to keep them alive.
Next to the rubbish tip, a Brazilian Protestant church runs a daycare centre for young children.
Our children are very needy children. They live here in Heaven's Hill next to the tip. Some of their parents may be cooks, cleaning ladies, domestics and so on, working in houses of people who have good financial backgrounds.
Occasionally we get a strong smell coming from the rubbish dump. But the option for these kids would be to stay indoors at home, or perhaps just actually in the dump itself, because many of the kids we receive here come from our sons and daughters of people that work in the rubbish dump.
Many of the kids arrive here with sores on their faces and on their bodies. and our paediatrician treats them and sends them to the state health centre, where they can receive injections and the necessary tests for these kind of illnesses.
Many Christians here believe that their faith inspires them to help. Not surprising, I suppose, for a faith whose founder said so much about helping the poor.
The way we see it is we're trying to give Christ's love to the children, like trying to bring them a part of Christ. So we're hoping that we can do something of what Christ would do if he were here himself.
To be a Christian, you have to be committed to other people, to their spiritual welfare and to their physical welfare as well, which means going out and helping people that are collecting rubbish from the dump and earn barely enough to keep them alive.
When the Europeans first came to Brazil, they not only brought their culture, they brought their Christian faith. And over the centuries, Brazil has become one of the biggest Roman Catholic countries in the world. There are signs of it everywhere. This statue dominates the whole of Rio. It's called Christ the Redeemer, but what you make of it is up to you. Some people point out that by the statue facing south, Christ is ignoring the north, where many of the poorest people live. This museum shows something of the slavery which also came to Brazil with the Europeans. It was eventually abolished in 1888. However, many people in the church actively supported the slavery system.
Christianity was imposed on the black slaves. It was outside the black tradition and was offered as the only option. It was not a question of choice.
They wanted the slaves to become Christian. However, they still expected them to carry on being slaves. They thought they could be liberated inside, yet still wear their chains in society. Going to a church like this one must be pretty awe-inspiring for the rich and the poor. It's the Church of St. Francis and was built in 1756. When you look around here, it makes you feel that perhaps God is a lot more special than everyday life. The very rich who sat in these balconies saw things from a different angle. Today, some people still come to this church to worship God. But here in the suburbs of Rio, the Roman Catholic Church has something different to offer. Theology means having an understanding of God. Liberation means being set free, perhaps from oppression or poverty. Liberation theology was a new way worked out by Christians in Latin America to make their faith very active in this century.
Liberation theology means helping to fight for a better future, but fighting with love and thinking of Christ. It's a way for the individual to struggle to improve day-to-day life.
There's no priest running this meeting. That's quite common, because this is part of a basic church community, which the ordinary people run themselves.
We meet and talk about what it is the young need. There's lots of love and affection and friendship between us, but we're working to try to improve the realities of our lives.
There are 2 local priests who come originally from Ireland. They help and advise 7 basic church communities in the area. With them is a trained counsellor.
The people here are living in practically subhuman conditions. Christianity helps show us that it's worthwhile to fight, to try to change the situation, to regain respect as one of God's children.
The priest doesn't come along and try and organise a community. He comes and he finds people who are willing to meet, willing to discuss their lives in relation to the Bible, in relation to their faith. And bit by bit, they decide that they would like to build a building around this particular area for their meetings and that.
We start with
facts, what's happening in people's lives, and we just discuss them as any ordinary human being, we discuss the reasons and the consequences and the feelings of these people, and then we say, well, what would Jesus do or say in this matter?
The suburb is called Nova Iguaçu, and some of the friends I made there helped me understand what their life is like.
To be honest, our life here is hard. We have to be on the buses very early each morning to get to work in the city. They're normally packed solid, and you have to stand on them for hours. Often when you meet men on a crowded bus, they abuse you. It's very dangerous in this area. All the muggings and violence make it really repressive for young people.
If you like meat, you can get some fantastic meals in the restaurants here. They're called churrasco. As well as bringing you loads of bread and salad, they're bringing these massive skewers full of meat. Lamb, beef, chicken, everything you can think of. And they keep coming all evening. You can have as much meat here as you can possibly manage. Most of the people who live here just would not have the money to spend in such restaurants. Mrs. Sacramento has invited us into her kitchen, where she's cooking dinner for the 7 members of the family. Bon dia.
Bom dia.
What have you got here? What's here?
Arroz.
Oh, rice?
Arroz.
Yeah. And with the rice, do you have beans? Beans?
Sim,
These
feijão.
are beans.
Feijão.
And what meat? You're having meat with the rice and beans, yeah?
Carne seca.
That's beef, yeah.
Chispe.
Pig's foot.
Pé.
Ah, pig's foot. Ah, it smells lovely. It smells great.
Botar no feijão.
Yeah. The people in this queue are all waiting to see a doctor, and they're all emergency cases. The main hospital is on strike today. So Maronese, normally if your child's ill, but it's not a desperate emergency, you have to queue just to get a ticket, yes?
É verdade. A gente fica aqui o dia inteiro só para pegar número e fazer a ficha.
Some people queue all day just to get a ticket, and if you're a bit late and you don't manage to get a ticket, you have to queue the following day to get a ticket to see the doctor. So some people actually start queuing at 4:30 in the morning. Julio is a particularly lively member of the community. As he showed me round, I noticed the roads where people live. Most of them are just mud tracks.
There's no basic sanitation in our streets, and it's very depressing seeing things around you stagnate. Sanitation's important for health, young and old. I started a petition to the local neighbourhood association to get proper roads built here. There hasn't been enough support for it yet, but I've faith that it will happen one day.
These are open sewers, and when it rains here, they overflow everywhere. Just a few yards down the road, there's a school. Now, you may be used to your school closing because of high winds or heavy snow, but here, it's a different story. On one occasion, it rained, the sewers overflowed, and the school drains are blocked. Instead of the authorities simply unblocking the drains, the school was closed. The children lost out on their education, and things are going a bit too far. And so the community organised a demonstration, and as a result, the authorities unblocked the drain, which was all they had to do in the first place.
The people took placards and banners to the prefecture. and the mayor sent out the police to scare them away. Some were even molested by the police. Even now, the mayor only sent a machine to drain the ditch. When it rains, we still have the same problems.
One of the oldest Christian hymns can be found in St. Luke's Gospel, recited by Mary. It talks about how the positions of the rich and the poor can be turned upside down by God. Here's a version now by some young people from Brazil.
A minha alma engrandece ao Senhor, e o meu espírito se alegrou em Deus, meu Salvador. My soul praises the Lord, and my spirit glorifies the God, my Savior. Porque o poderoso me fez grandes coisas, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. Agiu com seu braço valorosamente, dispersou os que no coração alimentavam pensamentos soberbos. He has performed mighty deeds with his arms. He has scattered the proud in their inmost thoughts. Derrubou de seus tronos os poderosos e exaltou os humildes. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. Encheu de bem os famintos e despediu vazios os ricos. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty.
If you could describe liberation theology in just one sentence, how would you put it?
Well, I would say it's people becoming aware of their dignity as Christians and struggling to live in that dignity. And if the case may be, to struggle for it or fight for it. I don't mean in a violent way, but to go for it.
Without the basic communities, I don't think there'd be any social movements. Not everyone is conscientized.
The church gave me a greater awareness. We call it conscientization. I think other people could gain that too, if they were to do the same.
Our task here is to show people that they are able to change their own situation, because they are God's children with their own dignity and worth.
Hope is the last thing to die. I fight for this. My group fights for this. My church fights for this.
I think there is an excitement about being a new form of church. It's not a different church. It's the same good old 2,000-year-old Catholic church, but it's a different way of expressing your faith. And there is a joy and an excitement about that, which I think is spreading to other parts of the world.